you know, John Burke says, oh, okay, well then what you need to do is find a Stonehenge in your neighborhood and carry your seeds over there. I don't think that's actually the next step. No, I think the next step is to teach the physics of how you make the electric field that caused the seeds to germinate. And that's what we're about, and that's what Sal, over there, Sal Giannotto, has helped me measure the success of. And this is Sal's measurement. He's going to talk more about this in his talk. On the bottom, you see, that's a plant that I think we had 2 or 3 weeks of growth there, if I recall, Sal. Yeah. And we had measured a 300% difference in growth by weight in that plant after we produced this particular field. Now, I'm going to explain to you a lot more this afternoon on how we create what I call the bioactive electric field. But I will tell you that it's based precisely on this principle of how centripetal forces in general are created. And that's why I'm so concerned that we understand correctly the electric generation of centripetal force. I'm going to bring up a screen here. This is applying this idea that phase conjugate fractality is the cause of gravity. I'm going to apply that to the nature of hydrogen. And I'm going to do that because that will be a beautiful example of how this can be applied in general to the entire atomic table. So here what we did, this is my original equation where I took the Planck length. The Planck length, in my view, defines the sacred in physics because it's the wavelength which fits evenly into everything in physics. There's no evidence that any other wavelength is sacred to physics. So the Planck length is sort of what we call the baby drool. It's a universal solvent. Everything can divide evenly into that. So it's the threshold of resolution of the quantum foam, as it were. So if you take that unit of length, the sacred in physics, and you multiply it by precisely the golden ratio, I discovered that equation was precisely predicting the 3 major radii of hydrogen. Now, there's a lot of work that's been done by a wonderful scientist named Hayrovsky, and he has dozens of published papers showing golden ratio in the structure of hydrogen. 3 of the primary radii he found for hydrogen, I discovered. This is some of the pictures. This will catch up in just a moment on the screen for the virtual viewers here. That the exact size of those radii was predicted by precisely golden ratio times the Planck length. This means that, I mean, there's virtually zero, there's mathematically, statistically 0% chance that this is an accident. The fact that the size of hydrogen is precisely predicted by golden ratio to Planck indicates that literally this golden ratio is what's holding hydrogen together. And I'd like to show you a picture about that and discuss briefly what that means, because I think it is so central to our hypothesis about, here's the picture I want to show, here we go. So I have an animation on top and a still on the bottom. It's coming into the virtual viewers here now. There we go. So if you look at the center here, think of this very center bottom as the Bindu point. Notice how that might look like a W. Later we're going to talk about TWT, Tahuti, David, as the 2 opposing ends of a cone which approach center and phase conjugate, which then became our Star of David. Yeah? That this is actually a name for the physics of the perfect approach of opposite cones. I'm going to bring up my face now just for a moment for our viewers here. That if opposite cones were approaching perfectly from opposite direction, in physics that's called phase conjugation, and it's the only way self-organization has ever been observed. So what we want to understand in this discussion is exactly how, see, I lost my picture here. Oh, that's the one I want, number 23. Exactly how that is the mechanism of the creation of centripetal force. If you want to track me with the camera for just a moment here. I want to discuss this image on the top here, that if you see that picture of 10 spirals of the golden mean, I want to point to it a different way here. Just bear with me 1 second. There we go. So the viewers at home can see it as well. I'm discussing this top left image right here. And you and I are trying to understand, since that 10 spirals of the golden mean, top left image, is precisely the top-down view of DNA and hydrogen, and, if we believe Nature magazine, a New Scientist magazine, the dodecahedral geometry of the universe, that hydrogen, DNA, and the universe have a top-down view, which is precisely this shape, 10 spirals of the golden mean. This we're going to apply then to all of our work on fractal field theory. I'm going to get a three-dimensional model here. That's beautiful. That sound system has no feedback. Paul, you're amazing. Totally cool. So here's the 3D model. So this model in 3D is equivalent to what you're seeing there in the 10 spirals. And since that is the precise electrical geometry of fractality and phase conjugation, which is the cause of gravity, the cause of color, the cause of perception, the cause of life, the cause of enlightenment, the cause of bliss, the cause of color, and the origin of symbol, that it would then be very appropriate for us to understand precisely how that works. Because if we understand why that creates an electrical force which pulls towards center, it's called centripetal, opposite of centrifugal, implosive, opposite of explosive. If we understand precisely how and why there is centripetal force in that shape, then we can invent all the technologies of fractal field theory and understand the role of life in the universe. Okay, so if we understand just that one thing together right now at this moment of how that shape, since it's precisely the geometry of hydrogen, the universe, DNA, in fact, atoms have and make gravity only to the extent that their nucleus is fractal and self-similar to their electrons in exactly that way. So this is the cause of gravity, and now we need to understand how it works. And that's why I'm sitting in front of you at this moment, is to make that point, which is how we introduce the rest of everything we will discuss about applying fractal field theory to technology. So, the way it works is that the golden mean ratio, which is the centerpiece of the 10 golden mean spirals in 3D which assemble this model, the golden mean ratio allows the waves to add and multiply constructively. This is what Einstein missed. This is why Einstein never figured out why an object falls to the ground, right here. The point is that as the waves converge in that pattern, a certain portion of their electric charge, adding and multiplying the wavelength, also adds and multiplies constructively, called perfected heterodyning, adds and multiplies the wave velocity, the phase velocity. And so the portion of that charge that's moving toward the center, 10 spirals of the golden mean, the portion of that charge that's moving towards center that adds and multiplies the wave speed constructively, which only golden ratio can do, add and multiply constructively. And when waves get together, they have to add and multiply. That's why the golden mean ratio is the solution to constructive wave interference, and that's why golden mean ratio is the solution to constructive compression. And constructive compression is precisely what Einstein had a nightmare about because he couldn't figure it out. This is the solution. Because the adding and multiplying of that phase velocity means that a portion of the charge that was experiencing compression has its wave speed, its wave velocity, adding and multiplying. That means a portion of that charge turns compression into acceleration. I repeat, a portion of the charge, inertia of that wave, experiences acceleration because of golden ratio, because of fractality, because of phase conjugation, optimized by golden ratio. That means that some of the charge, some of the voltage, some of the pressure, unified field of charge, the plasma going towards center, suddenly finds itself pushed towards center And that experience of acceleration is the definition of gravity. If you accelerate charge in physics, that is gravity, the only definition we have. So, do you now see what's happening to charge at the center of hydrogen, and therefore DNA? A portion of the inertia of that charge is experiencing perfected implosive fractal phase conjugate wave collapse. And that is the mechanism where centripetal force is created. And that is the cause and origin of gravity, color, perception, life, and bliss. A portion of that inertia that goes through the center at golden mean ratio multiples of the speed of light, and that creates the self-aware, self-organizing electric field. We have hundreds of papers showing that a phase conjugate dielectric is a self-aware electric field. A little bit of that field over here and here, they will find each other and locate each other remotely at a distance. Exactly the physics of what you call the collective unconscious, what I call DNA radio. A self-aware electric field that gathers together only patterns that serve the survival of the all. So we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here, but if you want to study some really useful science that's self-empowering, I urge you to study the literature on phase conjugate dielectrics. Phase conjugation, the word conjugate, simply means to, like when you have conjugal relations with DNA, when you get married, the DNA finds out which waves are shareable. Isn't getting married a good way to find out which waves are shareable? Well, see, at the very center of this array, only waves that can survive compression with perfect phase discipline are able to be distributed. Now, this is going to lead us into a discussion of self-awareness in plasma in general. And I'm not going to have time and to organize all the pictures just at this moment. I just want to introduce you to these ideas. We're talking about biologic plasma. The charge field, the cloud of charge, which is called life. And we want to know the shape of that, because that will be the clue to the nature of life. Let's look at, for a moment, what's called the orbs. That if you have the right shutter speed in your camera, you see these bubbles of plasma that occur around your body. And I'd like with you for a moment to look with me at the shape of these bubbles of charge of plasma, what you call the orbs. You have here the torus donut shape. But down below, if you study these fields, you notice that almost all of them, if you actually counted the number of points here, let's see if on the received computer we see this. Yes, you can see my arrow. So I'm using this arrow. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's actually 2 pairs of 5. That is a pentacle. That is a pentagonal dodecahedron. Now, why does the little bubble of plasma coming off your body, when you have, this is a rave party, the kids are having some bliss. What's coming off their body? Bubbles of plasma that appear to be self-organizing. How are they self-organizing? They're getting themselves into this shape, right here. So why is living plasma assembled in this geometry? I want to tell you that this is a profound clue. Just hold this image for a moment of what you see as a bubble of charge as dodecaecosa, and flash back on what Wilhelm Reich called a